Mi dai da dame?
Okej, może proszę. A, nie, właśnie, coś.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. I hope you can hear me well. Um, Before giving the floor to our speakers here, I would first like to introduce them with a few words. Here with me are Ivailo Kabakov, who is the head of the solutions at Ontotext, and Boursois Ankov, who is the product manager and owner of the Ontotext Metadata Studio. Um, they will talk about the graph building with text analytics. So a very interesting topic. I personally can't wait to hear what they have to say. So I won't really waste a lot of time. I will give them the floor, but just to remind you all that if you have any questions during the session, you can quickly ask them in the chat window on your right. And I hope that they will have time to answer them at the end of the session. With that, Borko, Ivo, it's up to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Yasin. My name is Ivailo, or Ivo for short, and Borislav is by my side. So we will be speaking together as we are in the same room, which is actually how we often work, right side by side. And you will be hearing me through the speakerphone that we have connected to his laptop to spare you transitioning between sharing session between him and me, because we would like to keep it interactive and share the presentation and also demos within this presentation and with this slot that we have to talk to you about graph building and text analytics. And speaking of graph building and text analytics, we've been living this for quite a while now, about 20 years now. But this might be an interesting thing for you to ask. Why actually are we speaking about text analytics? Well, one of the prerequisites that we want to start with, and I want to lay out two things as a foundation for where we're coming from for this talk, and actually for everything that we're doing in terms of text analytics and solutions around knowledge graphs with that, comes from Gartner and their insight that actually most of their enterprise data is unstructured data. That means that it is siloed in usually some content stores and, as we say, locked away in natural language or textual documents in various places, often multiple within an enterprise. And the second prerequisites that we start from, which is our claim and one thing that we will try to convince you of within this talk, if you have not been living our life and are already convinced in that, is that knowledge graphs and text analytics go hand in hand great together. Why? Because to do natural language processing or text analytics or text mining or tagging, these are terms that I may be using interdependent, as synonyms within this talk. To do that, you do need to actually have an understanding or arrive at an understanding of a natural language. And as humans, we often do that understanding through context and through contextualizing all the terms and all the concepts that we are speaking about. Knowledge graphs actually provide this context quite well for natural language processing technologies in whatever form they be. And that leads to better understanding, better contextualizing, hence better disambiguation when dealing with natural language. But the most important thing for this great symbiosis is that actually text analytics provides metadata, but it can also feed back the extracted metadata from natural language text to the knowledge graph, thus enriching that knowledge over time. And here I've teased you with that repeat as a programming loop, But if you follow that, you will see that it leads to an ever-growing body of knowledge. And since we're speaking of formalizing this into a knowledge graph, this leads to by utilizing text analytics fed through knowledge graphs, which feedbacks into the knowledge graph, the extracted knowledge, it leads to ever-growing knowledge graph. So, as we said, we've been building solutions for quite a while involving knowledge graphs and text analytics. And let's cover what these solutions have usually covered. This is the broad picture of why you would actually do that. Well, usually if you need text analytics solution, at the starting point of that is that you've probably handled your content and the way to describe it. In most of the cases, people start from controlled vocabularies, then they may organize them into taxonomies. Then when the need arrives and the actually information management and content management matures enough within an enterprise, often people arrive at the need of having a full-blown ontology. When you have that ontology, you usually do want to apply it against your content, which means making use of different text analytics services. It may be one that you have developed your own, one that are open source, or recently, of course, LLMs. Let's not forget the hot topic of this year. However, if we're speaking about applying this for commercial and business use, whatever you integrate your knowledge and natural language processing from wherever it may come, you do need to know how it works. So the need to evaluate in order to be able to measure how this actually works, to be able to compare different text analytics services, and to monitor how they actually work over time is a crucial aspect of actually utilizing such technology for commercial and for output that may be critical to your business. And then this is the kind of passive aspect. The active aspect is what you do with that. We say that we have some domain knowledge formalized in some ontology. We have some content that we tag that ontology against, and then we arrive at some metadata. What we usually can do with the result of that is we've summarized in 3 words, but if we unfold them, we can be speaking the entire night. But really, organize, discover, and repurpose can be the terms that encompass pretty much of all the use cases that we can see about that. So covering these needs with solutions and doing it over and over again, as we've been on the market for quite a while, you know us as a software company. So what we do when we see this need, well, of course, we do products. And you already know and have heard of our products, hopefully. These are GraphDB, which is the best knowledge graph database, subjectively our claim and objectively by some evaluations. Ontotext Refine, which works to RDFize data into GraphDB through structured input, and Metadata Studio, which works on unstructured data and converting it to RDF. How? This is what we will be unfolding on in this talk. And actually, this talk is really focusing on the Metadata Studio as we're speaking of text analytics and how that are combined and work together with knowledge graphs. So how does this product of ours fit on the market and what needs does it cover? Well, the simplest way to put it is that it covers 3 needs: to integrate, to evaluate, and control. Metadata Studio gives you the ability to integrate diverse tagging. Of course, let's emphasize again, LLMs too, to evaluate how it performs. And here an important part is to evaluate it by also giving you the ability to evaluate it against your own standards. That may be quite important because no 2 organizations think alike. And to control the output over time, which means control the tagging to tag with your content, to control it over time, and control what feeds back to your knowledge graph so that it's an ever-growing one. And when we're speaking of the fit of this thing, let's we want to turn it practical and not turn it into abstract lecture. And speaking of practice, let's remind ourselves something that you probably are well aware of. Here is a statistic that 87% of data science projects never make it into production. Unfortunately, I think the ratio of software projects in general is quite the same in terms of considering systems that software developers are working on being considered a success. So our fit in this more pragmatic way, we put it that let's see how we can bootstrap a knowledge graph, an enterprise knowledge graph, the right way. What we mean by the right way? Well, do it in such a way so that we do not fit in these 87% that we mentioned in the last slide. What this means in practice and these needs for us, this means that through integration, we lower complexity. Through evaluation, you give you the ability to know and to measure how exactly the functionality that you're using and integrating works. And not only passively measure it, but actually be able to steer it and use it to describe your world and over time improve your knowledge, your content, your organization. This is what we will be unfolding in the next slides and throughout this presentation to convince you of that our approach is worth it and to explain how we utilize it. So on the first topic, integration, what do we do say that integration does limit complexity and lowers cost. How come, you might ask? Well, if you don't need to build things from scratch yourself, it's of course a matter of reusability, which leads to optimization. There are two things that we want to highlight in the workflows that we are providing you. One of them is integrating of existing models that may be open source model, that may be commercial models, that may be ones that you've developed on your own, or ones that we have built for you in a custom way. This integration gives you the ability to reuse whatever may fit your use case. And the second thing which we want to highlight is that we want to bring everything that we do into a more agile way. Yep, agile has been quite a thing in the last years, of course, but if you consider natural language processing functionality, for example, it has always been quite often approached in a very waterfall way. What I mean by that? Well, if you want to do some custom thing that there is no ready-made open source model, for example, for say classifying content against your own taxonomy, that may be for organizing your knowledge better, or for extracting stuff that actually is specific to your business need or domain, what you would need to do are some things that, and trust us, this comes from experience, may be quite slow or quite expensive to get to. This is, you would need to create some training corpus for machine learning models training, then develop the software, which are these machine learning models, then tag your content, evaluate how it works, and if needed, go back to square one in order to improve stuff. What we actually give to the table through our integration, through our tools, and of course, stepping on the recent advancements in the technology in that field, we say that we shorten this loop to be much more agile, to provide you with a lot quicker feedback loop so that you can see quicker return of your investment in terms of effort and quicker arrive at results. And expanding a little bit on the first topic, which is integration, as we mentioned with the Metadata Studio, we give you the ability to integrate different services. What we mean by that it is I already referred to, but an important differentiation to make is not a matter of whether you will use that model from Hugging Face or that other model from Hugging Face. An important thing is that the things that differentiate the three models will be whether they're working against common knowledge that may be linked to open data, as you were probably well aware of. For example, Wikipedia, Wikidata, geonames, whatever that may be, taxonomies or ontologies from the linked open data domain, and actually tag your content with that global knowledge. But that may also be something that describes the domain that you're working in and your or enterprise knowledge. And that can also mean some custom thing that is not a matter of your taxonomy, but really a specific need that you would need. And we do provide you the first thing pretty much out of the box. We can claim and dare to claim that we can provide you out of the box state-of-the-art level of general entity linking against Wikidata out of the box. And we'll be speaking more about that and marketing more about that later within this year. And the important thing is actually here to highlight that the linking aspect, because named entity recognition is something that you can pretty much get as a commodity nowadays. But if we're speaking about knowledge graphs, we're speaking about linking the things that we recognize in the content, i.e. pointing out exactly which instance that is. Why? Because this is an important thing for disambiguation and for grounding the interpretation of the content that we're speaking about. And of course, this wouldn't be 2023 if we're not speaking about GPT and generative large language models in general. And as our friends from Gartner point out, we're pretty sure that they will continue to have a wider and wider adoption within the next few years. And why we're speaking of large language models, not just because they're the hot topic of the day, but simply because there is a lot of synergy and a great synergy we claim between LLMs and knowledge graphs. If you look at it from one perspective, some people at the beginning of this year thought, oh, we may be actually threatened because this is a disruptive technology. Are we out of business? Well, large language models and knowledge graphs do have a lot of things in common, and text analysis as well. Large language models and knowledge graphs both really embed knowledge and store it in their own form, and you can query to provide answers to questions. Yep, they do them in a very different way, but if you look at it this categorical way, you may see that they're really overlapping. Well, we say that this does not make them mutually exclusive, actually. They can really work together pretty well. If we dissect some features of LLMs and knowledge graphs, you will see probably you'll be as convinced as we are that some of the strong points of knowledge graphs are really weaknesses of large language models and vice versa. And what this means that if we combine both in the right way, well, we can benefit from the strong points of each of the parties and really make them serve us really well. And if you do not want to only count on us saying so, let us provide a couple of examples that I came across just today. One of them is from our friends at Data World that published an interesting benchmark claiming that they see 54% improved accuracy if asking questions that are LLM enhanced with knowledge graphs versus LLM only. And the second thing, the second quote on this slide comes from Seth Early, whom you may have seen earlier today, who delivered a lovely presentation. If you're not, please go back and check it. And he mentioned that actually evaluating question answering and responses out of enriched metadata versus non-enriched metadata from LLMs, there is a significant improvement as well. So hopefully that's convincing enough. And in order for this not to turn into a lecture where I'm just speaking about things in an abstract way, let us try to show you some things. When we're speaking about integration and text analytics, I'll hand it over to Borislav, who will show you how this happens within the scope of Metadata Studio.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ivo. So let me switch tabs. And over here, I have Metadata Studio, the product that Ivo mentioned. And as you can see, we have a corpus over here of a single document that we'll talk about more in future slides. But in terms of integration and reuse of readily available text analytics services, I can click in the annotation view of the tool, and I can select one of the text analytics services that we've registered in the tool. We have the event extraction LLM powered service, which we'll talk about in detail in a few minutes. And we also have stuff like Amazon Comprehend, Google NLP, Watson, etc., etc. Basically, we are free to pick and choose the annotation sources and metadata sources of our choosing. If I go back to the document, I can open it and I can see the content being annotated with the metadata from the text analytics services represented by the underlines under the various labels. And if I show you the filters or the sources of annotations, we can see that we have, for example, in terms of sources, we have locations from one service, we have the event extraction service that we mentioned, and I also have some admin annotations, which we'll talk about in a bit. But in terms of what data and metadata has been created, we have basic stuff like organization annotations and more interesting composite stuff, such as bits and mergers and acquisitions. And over to you, Ivo. I'll continue on in a bit.
So that is a simple example about how integration works as part of Metadata Studio. And as you've seen, we can integrate disparate text analysis services. Moving on to the second topic of our outline and claim here is that, again, a good reminder from Gartner that actually having an enterprise that uses bad data can be quite a plague indeed, and it can be quite costly. And what do we do about that? Well, being able to use LLMs is really exciting, as I'm sure we've all been convinced within this year, because we can use it for different scenarios which we haven't really been able to use technology for thus far, like really being able to chat with something in a really natural language, to make use of some approaches that were very hard and expensive to do for information extraction purposes, for example, like zero shot or few shot approaches towards information extraction, and even going thus far to synthetically generating training data for machine learning development. The important part is, however fascinating that it may be, in production use, we do need to be able to know how this fascinating technology actually works. Moreover, there is a second aspect when speaking about enterprise use, and that is what happens over time. Well, over time, the reality check hits, and we see that our business needs evolve. Semantic models need to change to reflect that. So, respectively, NLP or natural language processing and text mining needs to follow suit with these changes. And really, having a lack of reference data or data that is lagging with these changes makes the quality issues creep up. And quality management practices really are important thing here. And here again, Borislav will show you how we do that and how we cover that need within Metadata Studio.
Yeah, thanks, Ivo. So Exhibit 2, as we've dubbed it, is actually making sure that whatever the text analytics is outputting is up to standard. I'll go back to the document that we just saw. And I did mention that we have some admin annotations. Those are things that I've established as ground truth for this use case. If we were to look more closely at the output of the various annotation sources, we can see that the um, LLM-based extraction service outputs 17 organization occurrences, but then again, the human user has said that actually there are much more than that, twice as much. So obviously there's some discrepancy going on over here. What we can do is we can use the reporting and evaluation features of Metadata Studio. I'll navigate to the reports page, and within the reports page, I'll configure a simple F1 report, which is F1 is a common metric of quality evaluation for text analytics. And within this view, I'll specify which is the human benchmark or ground truth and what I'll measure against the human benchmark and ground truth. So against the admin annotations, I'll measure the output of the text analytics service that provides organization extraction, among other things. I'll choose one of the classes that I want to measure. As I mentioned, organization occurrences. There's some stuff like mergers, regulatory actions, more complicated stuff. We'll get to this in a bit. And those are more advanced configurations. I won't go into this, but just to generate an example over here, I can now see in a human readable way that actually there are quite a lot of discrepancies between the human user and the text analytics service. And I can even go into details and see like for like the output of the human user and the text analytics service. In this case, these are the true positives, but if I sort the other way around, I can see where myself and the text analytics service actually disagrees. So with that said, over to you again, Ivo.
Yeah, we won't dive into the details of the workflow, how you can improve the quality, because this will really require a couple of more hours for us speaking. So let's move to another important topic that goes back to Sarah from Synaptico, who very persistently mentioned how important is the human in the loop aspect. And here is one more evidence of that from Gartner, that this is more and more important for enterprises in the whatever use cases that you would like to apply it in. So moving on to the third part of our claims, which comes about control. Well, what Metadata Studio does provide you is really the control to have a data-centric view of your content and the enrichment process that you utilize together with that to really curate the information extraction output so that you control what feeds back to your knowledge graphs. And to illustrate that, we're speaking about really knowledge graphs and semantically enabled metadata of AI applications. Well, let's see the application then itself.
Indeed. So in this example, I'll go to another interface, which is the actual AI application that we built. And this one deals with more interesting stuff in terms and complicated in terms of extraction. So over here, we can see below the basic stuff, such as the companies that we've been able to extract, the locations, etc., etc. But this is the same document that I presented in Metadata Studio, and it deals about talks about a company, Yellow, that's filing for bankruptcy, and another company is bidding to save it from bankruptcy proceedings. As you can see over here, we've been able to indeed extract the bid, but where is the bankruptcy event, you might wonder? There is none, and this is just because we haven't actually configured this within the AI application and the model of the text analytics extraction yet. To do that, I can go to the schema management, open the ontology view, which is the one that is used to configure the behavior of the text analytics. And then I'll go to edit mode because I want to add a new event to be extracted. In this case, I want this to be a bankruptcy event because the article deals and talks about bankruptcy. So I'll create a new subclass over here, call it bankruptcy. And then let's see, I have to zoom in quite a bit. And then I'll start editing this one. So what I can do is, let me save this. All right. So I can add properties to this. And I can say that this one actually has a value of or an attribute that is pre-existing. I've created it. And I want to extract the assets of the bankrupting company because I'm interested to see more details about this event. Once I do that, I also want to link it to an organization because the one thing that's actually bankrupting in this case is the company, ELO. So over here, I'll create and link it to another property that I already created. This is a company that's filing for bankruptcy. I'll apply this, save the changes. And then if I go in and process the same piece of document again, did I save it? Sorry.
Save that now.
Right. Yeah, I think we saved it, hopefully. So if I go over here and process the same piece of content again, apologies, it should be good. I can say bankruptcy event, and I can schedule this for processing. Hopefully I didn't make a mistake. But now what I've done is I've really changed the behavior of the text analytics by supplying a new model for extraction. Whereas previously it didn't know about bankruptcy events at all. What I did was I told it, here is a bankruptcy event, here is how I model this, and I want you to extract it. And now what we actually do, the text analytics knows about this, and it extracts the bankruptcy events with the company that I'm interested in, linking to the correct instance, and also correctly outputting the amount of assets that the company has. And if I go to the graph view over here, I can see actually what is being written in the graph. I'll just take a second for this. A lot of stuff is being outputted over here, but more importantly, we have the bankruptcy event. So with this, over to you, Ivo, once again.
Thank you, Orko. So just to highlight about what we showed and what we've did really. When we outlined the process at the beginning, we mentioned how we're bringing closely the knowledge-driven information extraction and the knowledge graph within this entire spectrum of needs. I won't dive into this diagram with respect of time. And one more thing to highlight for the curious of you, what this looks like really behind the curtain. This is a really high-level diagram which describes how actually this little example that you've seen is using our products together with one of our partners' products. Here, shout out to MetaFacts' MetaFactory, and that we created this end-user interface for to be able to show it to you the end result and not just backend information. And skipping over really to the takeaways for you, moving on. Yeah, we do say that it might be a bit of complicated thing to create an enterprise knowledge graph. However, we do claim, and hopefully we have a little bit at least proven that to you, that it is not really that hard to start the journey, and probably the fundamental prerequisites you might need are already available. The really what we are doing by bringing this together in such a well-integrated way is making it fast and inexpensive to iterate, so that you can see how stuff goes on over time, and really hopefully convince you that we've got you covered with whatever your needs might be. And since this was just one example and one demonstrator that we've built to showcase this technology, if you're interested in how that may be applied in a little bit more use cases, stay tuned tomorrow for Krasimira's talk, who will be speaking about how we applied such similar technologies and retrieval augmentation patterns for our marketing teams. And with that, thank you very much for your interest, and handing over to you, Yasin.
Yeah, thank you all for joining, and let's head out to the panel because it already started. Thank you, Borko, Ivo. Let's go and watch the panel now. Thank you all.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye, have a nice one.